Before you even build your character in Starfield, the game gives you this beauty of a weapon. This is the cutter, and I've decided I'm going to beat Starfield using no other weapon but this. In order to give myself the best chance, I had to make some smart choices with character creation. I picked the cyberneticist background primarily for the laser skill, as that's one I'll be wanting to max out. Additionally, the medicine skill isn't a bad one to have, as it will make healing more efficient. As for traits, honestly didn't matter too much, but Taskmaster, UC Native and Wanted seemed like solid choices at the time. On to the start of the game proper, and the first thing I made sure to do was pick up a second cutter. Now obviously I can't wield more than one cutter at a time, although I'd love to dual wield them, but I am going to need at least a few more as I go, so I'm picking them up when I can. I decided to set myself up for the first fight of the game, so I threw some explosive barrels into place. And would you look at those throws? I know this is only the start of the video, but this might be the most impressive thing I did during all of it. That was the high point you just witnessed. Everything from here is downhill. Anyway, those barrels helped out a little bit on the very first fight, but honestly, those pirates didn't stand a chance. There's like half a dozen of us all with cutters. Easy fight. After the battle is done, I get to fly off into space, and here I think I need to acknowledge that space combat is unskippable. So I will also be fighting in space with my ship, but sadly you just can't poke your head out the window and start shooting other ships with the cutter. So if anyone at Bethesda is watching, please do patch that in. Thanks. With the space battle out of the way, it was then down to the moon of Crete, and here Vasco follows you, and there's no way to stop them from doing so. What you can do though is take the ammo out of Vasco's inventory, and then you just end up with a robot who runs over to enemies and looks confused. Problem solved. Clearing out this initial Crimson Fleet outpost didn't prove much of a problem. Every enemy is low level, and by using the stronger beam, it's pretty easy to wipe them out. The initial location is also a great place to level up some of the character skills. I was able to progress the laser skill and also invest in boost pack training. Pretty much the one essential skill for every character in the game. And when it came to dealing with Brogan, I figured it would be a great chance to test out my negotiation skills. Well, that's not a good sign of things to come. Diplomacy failed, but the cutter did the job just fine. After they were all dealt with, it was time to meet Constellation. I said hi, told Sarah to follow me, and Vasco to crew my ship. Then we get into the first actually challenging fight of a run. While searching for the Vanguard pilot who found an artifact, you end up fighting against both Ecliptic and Spacers. With this mission, I found the key was to duck in and out from cover, as the charge of a cutter needs a bit of time to recharge, so dealing with the enemies in short bursts is what I found most effective. This is also a mission where you have to bring Sarah along, and much like Vasco, we don't want her fighting with some non-cutter weapons. As such, I made sure to go into her inventory and equip her with a cutter. That's what all those extra cutters I'm picking up are for. Whenever I meet a new follower, I'm going to be taking all their stuff and equipping them with their very own cutter, so that they stick to the challenge rules as well. This is probably a good time to mention throwables too. Nice and simple, won't be using any. While clearing out the space station, I also managed to pick up a spacer communication, which starts off the Mantis mission, which we will be getting back to later. For now though, we need to continue with the Constellation missions, and rescuing Barrett is first on the list. The reason for this is that it sends you back to Vectera, where we find this. Hela's Cutter. This is the unique cutter that the game provides, and gives us an extra 20% damage to robots. Honestly, not sure if this really will make a big difference at all compared to the base model, but I'll take every advantage I can get. With the new cutter in hand, it's time to rescue Barrett, which all goes smoothly, and by bringing Sarah with me, I was able to peacefully deal with Matsura the Grim, already better than my last diplomacy session went. After that unprecedented success, I figured it was time to take on the Mantis quest. This was one hell of a firefight, and I was actually having to play it smart because these enemies are significantly higher level than me. Fortunately, it was another great chance to level some skills. Primarily the wellness skill, granting extra health and letting my character take more of a beating, which was definitely needed because there's a lot of firepower coming my way. I've done this quest enough times now though that I knew how to power through it, and with the help of the odd explosive barrel, I was able to make it to the end and earn my reward. Here is the Mantis suit. This is the armour I'll be using for the rest of the run, and I happen to actually get some pretty good effects on the set which will help a lot. And on top of the Mantis suit, we also get a strong Razorback ship to call our own. On its own, it's already pretty good, but with a few quick upgrades, I was able to get the ship ready to take on the rest of the playthrough. With the gear all set up for the rest of the run, it was time to get the rest of Constellation's missions done. Sam's mission was up next, and not only does it provide another artifact, but it also gave me a chance to test out my diplomacy skills. And amazingly, I passed the speech check! Almost made me feel bad about having left all those explosive barrels on the ground to kill everyone with. And it did take me a while to set them all up in just the right place. I'd feel kind of bad to have wasted all that time. So... yeah, I murdered everyone. But I'm not the only psychopath in the game, alright? Just look at Andresia here. That guy is definitely dead, but she just keeps on shooting. This mission with her was a bit of a tricky one, as she follows you, but you can't access her inventory just yet, so I couldn't give her a cutter right away. I didn't want Andresia to be helping me with a non-cutter based weapon, so I decided the only fair thing to do was charge blindly into combat and make sure I kill everyone myself. And that's how I got the next artifact. It was then onto the temple. Here we got to do everyone's favourite puzzle, which involves floating around in 0G and chasing bright lights. Means that I now have the anti-grav power, which is the only one I see myself needing for the run. And that is why I'm not going to worry about getting the other temples. Yep, that's the reason. For the next artifact, I don't need to worry at all about using the cutter, as it's a social and stealth mission. I headed to Neon and managed to use the opportunity to raise my persuasion skill a bit. There's a speech check I desperately need to pass at the end of the game, so I'm trying my best with all these checks in order to level the skill and also bank an auto attempt. The second half of this mission is a stealth-focused one, where you're supposed to sneak through the Slayton Aerospace offices. Obviously, I'm an incredibly skilled player, so this mission will be a breeze for me. And that's the alarm tripped. Fuck it, I'm just running to the end. In my experience, speed is always superior to stealth anyway. I absolutely aced that mission, so on the way out some Starborn loser wanted my autograph and some tips on stealth. The autograph would have been a bit much, but the stealth tips I was happy to provide, so I disappeared in the blink of an eye. With the Neon detour out of the way, it was back to gathering artifacts. They are now guarded by Starborn, but only a single one. The great thing about the cutter is that it can stagger enemies, making it the absolute king of the one-on-one fight. I did also start investing in the energy weapon dissipation skill, as nearly all the endgame enemies deal energy damage. In fact, I think these artifact guarding pirates might have been the final enemies that actually use ballistic weapons, and they're all dead now, so the skill should be paying for itself in next to no time. Given my diplomacy skills have been going so well this run, I decided to see how good the cutter was at the same skill, and I'm happy to report it convinced Captain Petrov to hand over his artifact in record time. Things took a bad turn quest-wise after this, and it seems the Starborn are coming to steal the artifacts. Fortunately, I've left Sam to deal with them while I check up at everyone on the eye. Turns out they're all fine, so I pick up a trauma pack. That's going to be handy for all the trauma that's coming up. I also took an hour-long nap, because I am confident that everything is going to be fine back at the lodge. Fully refreshed, I head back to said lodge, and... oh dear.
Dad! Get up!
Well, that sucks. Moving on. Time to have a little chat with the Starborn. Rather than focus on the fact they killed a friend, I take their advice and take a field trip to NASA. Picked up another artifact there, and then had a host of Starborn show up. Rather than stick around and fight them all, I shot up some amp and sprinted the hell out of there. I did make sure to take a detour soon after to actually max out the laser skill though, meaning the cutter can now set enemies on fire. This really turns the cutter from just a surprisingly good early game weapon to one that will actually see me through the end of the game. There's only a couple of missions left now, and both are going to be a real challenge. First up, we have the reality swapping one, where I'm constantly going back and forth from being attacked by either robots or creepy scorpion things. The disassembler effect on Hella's cutter might actually be coming into play here, at least in one reality. Between my terrible sense of direction and the mass hordes of enemies, this is probably the mission that took the longest in the whole run. There are so many enemies here, and I pretty much had to just brute force my way through them all. But honestly, the cutter is great for that, and being able to hop between realities can sometimes allow for the cutter to recharge. Other than that though, the tactic really is just to blast everything that looks remotely hostile and let them burn out. With a lot of enemies taken down, I finally get the artifact, claps a reality, and it's time to deal with the last of the Starborn. First battle against them is in space, and it doesn't go great for me to be honest. The Razor Leaf is no cutter, that's for sure. Fortunately at this point I had a bunch of spare skill points to spend, so I just threw in every point I could into ship skills in the tech tree, and that seemed to tip the balance back in my favour. And with the final space battle out of the way, it's time to land on the planet and head into the Buried Temple. And this is one hell of a battle. There are several different waves of top tier Starborn to deal with. The first lot are fairly easy to deal with, just a case of running directly towards them whenever they teleport away, and occasionally using the conveniently placed explosive barrels to get a nice damage boost. After the teleporting clones are out of the way, it's on to the Necromancer Starborn. This one brings a bunch of Ecliptic back from the dead, who fortunately weren't too high level, so provided little more than speed bumps. The next Starborn is one surrounded by robots and turrets, so this is a perfect job for Hela's Cutter. The DPS is brilliant, and it just tears through robots with ease. Doesn't do a half bad job against the Starborn either. And after this fight there's another anomaly for me to deal with, leading me back to the interaction with Katrin Petrov. The Cutter did such a good job of negotiations last time, but I let it take the lead again, and we're out of there in next to no time. We're now on to what will hopefully be the final fight of the game, and this time the Starborn is bringing duplicates with them. That's right, now I'm getting the Cutter used against me by myself, and just listen to the pain it dishes out. Fortunately, all those skill levels I spent on getting more health, reducing energy damage, and reflecting it back, means that I can tank all of this like a champ. I also like to think it shows how much better I am with the Cutter. I swear these idiots aren't even using the extra strength beams. Don't you know how to press the right mouse button? These pretenders to the throne of the Cutter Kingdom never stood a chance, and I dispatch them with the deadly proficiency of one who has used this as their main weapon on every character they've played so far. No, I'm not obsessed with the weapon, you are! These guys are all dead, and it's now on to the part which really matters. The Emissary and the Hunter are up ahead. If I pass this speech check, then I'm free and clear. If I fail it, I have to take on the longest fight in the game, which took me about 20 minutes last time I did it, and that was with a character who could use multiple weapons and had explosives at hand. So here goes, the final challenge. I got drunk and stepped up to the plate. I'd been saving a single auto attempt for the entirety of the game, so I used it to get the best bonus I could. After that, I crack a quick joke. And that is how I defeat the final bosses of the game. I guess you could say that the Cutter wasn't the only weapon I had in my arsenal. I also had comedy in there. Although I swear to God if you comment that this breaks the rules of the run, I will absolutely do nothing to stop you because comments count as interaction with the video, and that would actually be very helpful for getting my channel to be shown to more people, so thank you very much. But with that check done, it truly is the game complete. I have a quick chat with myself, curse that I made such a sexy looking character that I now have no use for, and step through into the Unity. Credits roll, and the game is over. I did it. I beat Starfield using just the Cutter, and I did it in under 7 hours. And honestly, it was pretty easy. The Cutter is genuinely a great weapon, and I've been using it all of the time. It doesn't need ammo, does decent DPS, and is a guaranteed find. On higher difficulties it might struggle a bit, but for anyone else still playing on normal like me, you should give it a shot. And that's it. Challenge is over. If you enjoyed, give the video a like, subscribe for more Starfield content, and as always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.